Whoa! I'm very happy. It seems that the radio is alive. So we still have stuff to see here. I think that B plus is way too low. Let me think a little bit what's the next step. I have played more with the radio, and indeed I consistently got a lower voltage on B plus than the diagram says we should expect. So the diagram says we should have with FM 235 volts at the output of the selenium rectifier, and with AM long wave with the jazz button setting, we should get to 40. So I was getting closer to 200, between 200 to 210 for all of them. So the radio works, but that's not optimally. We have to replace this with something else, with a silicon rectifier bridge, like this one that I have here, with these 4 legs. So what I have done here is that I have disconnected once more that cable. So actually I have disconnected one of these ends, right? Either this one or this one. I have disconnected one of these ends. So I removed the selenium rectifier from the picture, and using alligator clips on these 2 points, and remember this one is now disconnected from the selenium rectifier, I have gotten this bridge here, and then we have to, the problem is that this silicon diodes will be too efficient, so we're going to have a very high voltage here. So we need to use a resistance to bring down the voltage. So after some experiments, I landed on a 330 ohms 5 watt resistant, and this has to be like at least 5 watt because this gets pretty warm, dissipates a lot of heat. But anyway, now we have this rig, so it goes through the bridge rectifier, and then we have that on the negative part of it, and then I connected via these cables to the B plus. So you see this setting here, there's a lot of cables around, and a lot of there's serious voltage coming here. So you have to be extremely careful with this stuff. So I'm used to this. So I took some liberties here in putting these outside the radio, and where I could theoretically touch it, but I'm extremely careful to not come nearby near this. And before doing any test with the radio, I check multiple times that all the cables are properly connected and that they are not touching each other or touching anything that could cause further trouble. So that's quite important. And I will not work like this for long. This is just because I needed to play around a bit with this resistance value, and I didn't want to, solder the whole thing inside the chassis before I know I'm doing the right thing. So now I know I'm doing the right thing, and I'm gonna show you in a while. So before that, some other things to comment. I have further disassembled the cabinet. So here's the speaker with the grill cloth, and it is of course connected to the where it should be. Also, I tried to get a proper replacement, a 7 volt replacement for these dial lamps. I was out of luck because my supplier actually only had one of them. So this is the proper 7 volt lamp, and this is still the 10 volt one. So when we turn this on, this shines very bright as it should, and this less so. And as soon as I get the proper one, I'm gonna also replace this. But for now, this is what we have. Also, I got some cable to replace the mains wire that's pretty old and unsafe. So we're gonna replace that one soon. Also, let's put the magic eye here to this double face tape here, so it's out of the way. So with that, we can make a test. I'm gonna show you that with this thing, we actually get slightly low. Oh, by the way, there's something important that I should mention. So the idea here is when you have, for instance, 220 volts on the mains AC, that you have 235 volts DC on the B plus. So with that 330 ohms, actually when we have 230 volts, which is the normal tension in Europe. So when I have 230 volts, not 220, but 230 volts here, I'm gonna get around 233 volts here. So you see, basically I'm playing it safe here. So if we just plug this in a regular outlet in the region, you're gonna get this pretty close to where it should be, but slightly less so. It's always better to be slightly less so than too much. And if you get this to 220, then you're gonna get something, I don't know, between 220 and 230 volts here, which is lower than it should be. But you see, basically I'm trying to, it will still work, it's just not optimally, but I'm going for safety here. So I wriggled out the Cyclinium rectifier out of the radio, and so here it is. It was fixed to the chassis by these two screws, and here we have the four contacts, right? So the two poles for AC, and the positive and negative poles DC that are the output. So one thing we could do, as I mentioned, is take this diode bridge, put this screw here in here. I have soldered here the rectifier bridge to the chassis, so you can see it's here. So it's attached to the chassis via a screw, and we have the proper connections made, and here's our resistor. And notice that I have put it in a way that is not, it's clear from the wires around it, so it doesn't melt one of these wires, because it can get quite hot. So I'm gonna put here in the DC poles the multimeter, and let's try this out. And here's the radio ready to be turned on, with the multimeter attached to the right points. We can see that for 230 volts, we have right now 300, but going down because the tubes are getting warm. And as soon as they have some time to stabilize, we're gonna see what's the actual voltage. Notice that the lights are unequal. As I mentioned, this one is the proper light, 7 volts, and this is the 10-volt one. And we see that for our 230 volts, we are a bit over 240 and going down, and it stabilizes a bit under 240 for FM, and that's good, which means that at 220 volts, it's going to operate with intolerance. So that's very good. And here we have the new power cord installed, and we can get rid of this old, ugly, dangerous thing. So I thought we were done with the electrical part. Then I tried radio with the new power cable, with everything new. And I was a bit annoyed because the Magic Eye, the EM80, was not opening, even when I had a good station tuned in. So I tried putting a brand new tube known to be working. That did not change the behavior. Then I put this step here to measure voltage, and voltage, let me find a pencil here. So voltage at this point, at the grid of the EM80, should be between 0 and minus 14 volts, and it was almost 0 all the time. So that's why the eye is always closed. And I was trying to figure out what was going on, so I was suspicious of this cap, the electrolytic capacitor that I had replaced. I thought might have a cold solder joint, so I actually removed it and I put a new one. I cannot show it right now because it's on the other side, but it's another one, 2.2 microfarads put here, and I measure continuity between this pin of the EABC80 and the cap, and it was fine. So actually from this pin to the negative pole, it was fine. So I was wondering what else could be wrong. So that we have here a 4.7 nanofarads, which I don't remember seeing it. I actually had already, like here, this question mark, where is this thing? And then I started tracing the signal from this pin. It comes through here, and then there is a yellow, it's hard to see. It comes from this, it comes away from here to this yellow wire and to this joint here. And then I noticed something. Let me see if I can get the light stable enough that I can point it to you. No, not really, but this thing over here. Oh, there we have it. You see? Full of dust. This is an old paper cap. So this is probably the reason that the Magic Eye doesn't close. So I have to replace this guy, which may be a challenge. So let's see. So now it is working. And you can see it's kind of dim, but you can see that if I go off station, then it opens, and then it starts closing when we get. Now we got ourselves a working radio. Usually at this point, if you watch one of these YouTube videos showing people renovating radios like this, what you would do at this point is the radio alignment. That means that you would tune these cans, you would tune the coils that are sitting inside these cans by twisting them with an alignment tool that looks a bit like a screwdriver, but made out of plastic or ceramic. And you would tune these coils to get the best reception possible on the radio. And also we would align the dial, so the station that we see here on the dial would be perfectly matching the actual station. And the manual, the service manual, has a procedure here telling you how to do the alignment. So the thing is, I have a very little success rate doing alignment. Maybe I lack the skill, maybe I like the tools, but very often I end up with broken coils. So that's what happened to that radio over there, that Philips radio, the big wood one. And in this case, I actually tried to clean up one of the coils out of some paraffin that they put there to avoid that you mess with it. And I've tried turning it, and it almost broke. So I will not take any chances. I will not do alignment on this radio because I prefer having a working radio that is perhaps not perfectly aligned, but that in the future, if I get better skill-wise or I have some better tool, I can do this alignment. Okay, now that we have made Magic Eye work, we got ourselves a working radio. So we have FM, we should have AM. However, I'm thinking with this radio, going beyond and installing Bluetooth without modifying the radio too much. So you see, this radio has this TA, this is a pickup or gramophone input. So back on the back of the radio, you see here where we have these two banana pins, because I was doing some testing, that's why these wires are here. So you could put the input of a record player. So we're gonna use that thing. We're gonna basically connect a Bluetooth module. So you can buy an integrated Bluetooth module like this one. And if you look here, you see that we have here the outputs for left and right. And what we can do is, because this is a mono input, we can use a bunch of resistors to join the positives and negative poles of each left and right, and then we turn this into a mono. Then we can always add a capacitor, a small value capacitor. This is 2.22 nanofarads in series with the output to prevent that any direct current goes in or out. And if we can power this Bluetooth module and connect it to this output, then we put a TA here. We're gonna hear Bluetooth on the radio. So all that remains is to power the Bluetooth. So one idea could be that we pull just the power from the mains input, right, from the outlet to, in my case, to 30 volts AC, and we could use something like a wall wart to power this up. But then we have a problem. We're gonna have a buzz, and this buzz will come because there is a common ground between the Bluetooth module and the radio, and then there's interference. So another way to solve it is that instead of using a wall wart like those, we can use a complete power supply like this. You see that it has as an input just mains power and output 5 volts DC at 0.6 amps. And this would be perfect. And also I found that these modules, they have ground isolation. So there must be some sort of DC converter, or this may be even some sort of small transformer that gives you ground isolation. So that's perfect because we have no bus. So what we have to do is we have to connect these two poles here to this side to mains, and we can do that from within the radio. We can even make it in such a way, for instance, that we on one pole we take from the mains, and the other we take it from here, which means that it is turned on and off by this switch, which means that when we power on the radio, we get power flowing through this module, and then we get a DC output on this side. We use it to feed these connections here, which are the power connections of the Bluetooth module. Then we get the output to become mono and to be fed to the TA entry. So when we turn on the radio, it powers on the Bluetooth module, your phone or tablet or whatever connects to it, and then you can stream. And then when you want to stop listening, you turn this off, and then the Bluetooth is going to turn off automatically, like if this was a Bluetooth speaker. So this is what we are doing. And here we can see a first test of the rig. So here's the mains, and one of them is coming from that point, which is only turned on when we turn that switch. So here we have the 5-volt rail feeding the Bluetooth module. You can see the blue light is turned on, and now we have both these wires, the black ones, are carrying the negative poles, the ground of the audio, and then we have those two resistors there joining into a mono channel, the left and right channels, and both the red and the black wires go to the back of the radio, and we have the TA turned on. And I have here a tablet that is connected via Bluetooth to the radio. So if we play here some copyright-free music, you see it's playing on the radio, and we can change the volume here. We can change the treble and the bass. And if we are done listening, we can just turn off the radio and the Bluetooth module is gone. So if you turn it on again, we get it back. You see, it just connected, and now the sound is coming not from the tablet but back from the radio. So exactly as a Bluetooth speaker. So now let me put this inside the radio. And here we can appreciate the end result with everything soldered in. So we have here these two wires, the blue and the brown, that are basically bringing us the mains voltage. So one of them is here, and the other one goes back there. It's that point at the top of the chassis. So we feed this power supply when we turn on the radio. And here we have two wires that bring the 5DC voltage to the Bluetooth module. You see the Bluetooth module is screwed here. There's a small screw that is mounted at the back of the chassis. I had a hole I could use. This is just some double-sided tape. I'm actually not even using it to glue it to the chassis. This is just to isolate the board from the chassis. And here we are using the double-sided tape to actually hook this power supply here. So with that rig on, it means that our radio has Bluetooth with minimal intervention. So we have, I haven't shown the audio input. So you see down back there, it's hard to see, but we see the two resistors that they come with this red wire and through the capacitor, and they come here to the line input. In this pair of black wires, they are connected to the ground of the pickup input. So we have these four wires connecting everything, and it should work now. It's a nice sunny day, a nice day to work on the cabinet outdoors. So first thing, sorry for the shadow. So you can see it's not bad. Beautiful sunburst, lots of dents here and there. You see I removed everything, including the Lowy Opta logo. I only left this finish here, metal finish, that I'm going to protect to apply some products. So I took a sponge and just some water and gave the cabinet a good wash inside and outside. So still not perfect. Some parts are really hard to get perfect, but it's much better than before. And now the next step is taking a mix of equal parts of methylated spirit, white spirit, and boiled linseed oil, and making a reviving mixture that we're going to apply to the wood. So we are not refinishing this cabinet, which I have done in some other cases, but it doesn't make sense here because this is pretty good. It's just details. And there we have some plastic parts and the dial and things that we're gonna clean just with some soap and water. So Now we have masked out the part that has the metal, and we're gonna try applying the substance first on a part of the cabinet that is inconspicuous, so we don't see if this for some reason doesn't look good. So I'll soak up an old rag here and see what happens. So we can see this half we have applied the mixture and the other we haven't. For comparison, you see how the colors pop. With the cabinet finishing retouched, now we have this beautiful wood grain. So we can compare this radio is from the same year, but it's untouched. So I'm gonna get out of the shadow zone. So you see this is a radio with the same finishing, same colors, about the same year, without the treatment, and this is the one shiny with the treatment. So I got this sort of pen that is special for wood. I started with the back, so if something goes wrong, it's not in a very visible part of the radio. And you see, this is the point where I have already applied the pen. So these are some damage that is like very exposed, and this is the painted one. So what I have to do is take this pen and retouch it. But you can already see, if we do this to all these little marks, then it's just calling less attention of the eye. We have this dents here. What I'm doing is I'm using this wax that has a similar color and an old soldering iron tip that I don't mind dirtying up. I'm doing it like this. I'm putting a little bit of wax in there, so it's not going to look perfect, but it's going to, then we have to get the wax to be in the right shape, and then it's going to make it look less conspicuous. This way we're gonna get these dents improved. This is the result. So it's looking more uniform now. Of course, if you know what to look for, you can see the places where you have the wax here, down here, but it's just overall looking less conspicuous, especially if you take the light away. You put in like not overhead light, then it looks much better than it was before. So now that we have renewed the finishing, we have done this, so what I'll do is gonna mask out these metal parts, and I'm going to give it a polish with beeswax. Another job that has been completed is cleaning these details. So these are the plastic pieces that go on the side of the chassis. So they are cleaned. They are clean. And here's the knobs. You see, I just removed them and did not even have to brush or do anything to clean them. I only put them with soap, actually with dish detergents and a lukewarm water, and I put on a bowl for a couple of hours, and I did nothing, and they came out pristine like this. So that's very good. This, I will not remove the piano keys. I'll just clean them as well as I could without risking damaging, because it's you cannot put too much strength on these keys. Otherwise you risk breaking something. Actually, there is one that's broken. You see here there's something that looked like dirt, but it's actually, well, there's a bit of dirt there as well. But what I mean is, let me put the FM here. You see this thing here that looked a bit like dirt. Actually, it's a small gap because it's slightly broken there. That's no problem. So now we can put all these trimmings back in the radio. One thing we need to clean is this grill cloth. It's very, very stained and yellowed. If it were just yellowed, but evenly yellowed, it would be fine, but it's just with these stains here that are very unsightly. So I have removed everything. I have removed the speaker. I only left the holder of the Magic Eye because this won't make a difference. And what I'm doing here, I've never tried this, but it's a trick that I saw in a forum, is to have a mixture, half bleach, half water. And then what we do is that carefully with a brush, you apply it, you brush it, and then you quickly, before it gets too wet, you apply a paper towel or toilet paper to remove the excess, so we don't want this to become like completely wet. I'm gonna do this process for the entire thing, and I'm gonna show you the result later. I have finished applying it and even dried it a bit with a hair dryer. Still has to dry a bit, but I must be honest, I don't think it made much of a difference. So here I tried to rub it more, but it frayed a bit. It actually did not fray, but it starts fraying a bit the cloth. So I guess I'll just leave it as it is. So if I wanted it to look perfect, what I would do now probably is to buy a similar grill cloth. Would never be exactly the same, but similar. Just remove it from this board. Then glue a new one in place, make this cut for the Magic Eye, and make it look like new. But I want to restore this, and yeah, these stains, they are now part of the radio's character, so they will remain here. We have here the waxed and polished cabinet, now with already back with the Loewe Opta logo, and these plastic decorations, those are not yet screwed, so I still need to fix them in place. So we have this, and we have here our grill cloth. It's not perfect, it's actually far from it. It's still quite stained, but that's I'm keeping it. I can always replace it in the future. By now I prefer to keep it original. And here we have the radio, everything working best we can make at this time. So I have to put it all together. I have to get everything in place here. I need to then put the speaker and the grill back. Then I have to remove these fixtures, and then I can slide in the radio back into the chassis, and I can solder back the points that hook it to the speaker, and we're gonna have a complete assembled radio.
Rock and get a rock, a rubber ball.